Today we're going to be learning about simple interest and hire purchase agreements. We're going to start off by quickly reminding you about what interest is. When you invest or borrow money, that money will grow over time by a certain percentage every year. This is called interest. The principal, or P, is the amount of money that is invested or borrowed. So that's the amount that you start with. The interest rate, or R, is the percentage that the money invested or borrowed increases by per annum, or PA, which means per year. So when we say PA or when we say per annum, we mean per year. The interest is calculated using the interest rate. The time, or N, is how long the principal is invested or borrowed. This is measured in years, so N is actually the number of years. The accumulated amount, or A, is the total amount at the end of the time, and it can be calculated by saying the principal, which is the amount that you started with, plus all the interest that you earned. So the accumulated amount is the combination of the principal, the amount that you started with, and all the interest that you earn. Okay, now let's have a look at simple interest, or SI. Simple interest is calculated as a percentage of the principal amount. So you'll be told what the interest rate is, and then you will use that interest rate to work out a percentage using the principal amount. And then every year, the interest will be that same percentage of that same principal amount. It's not affected by the investment or loan amount changing over time due to the interest being added to the investment or the loan. Okay, so simple interest isn't affected by that. It's always going to be calculated on the principal amount. Okay, now let's have a look at an example. You invest 1,600 Rand in the bank at 6% per annum simple interest. How much money will you have saved after 5 years? Okay, so let's go and have a look at how we would work this out. So first of all, I'm going to calculate how much interest you would get for 1 year. Okay, so I take the principal amount, which is the amount that you start with, so it's 1,600 Rand, and I'm going to multiply it by the interest rate, which is 6%, but I'm going to write that as a decimal, so 0.06. So I'm going to work that out. So 1,600 times 0.06 gives me 96 Rand. So that is how much interest I would get for 1 year. But this investment was not only for 1 year, it was for 5 years. So now we're going to go and find out how much interest you can get for 5 years by taking that and multiplying it by 5. Okay, so I'm going to take the 96 times it by 5, and that gives me 480 Rand. So that's the total amount of interest that you would get for this 5-year investment. So now to work out the total value of this investment after 5 years, I'm going to take the interest and I'm going to add it to the principal amount, because remember, the accumulated amount, which is the total value at the end, is the principal plus the interest. So I'm going to take the principal, which is 1,600, and I'm going to add the 480 Rand interest. And that gives you 2,080 Rand. So that's the total value after 5 years. Now, I could have done this a little bit quicker by combining these into one step. So I could say, instead of doing it separately, I'm going to work out the total simple interest amount by saying the 1,600, which is the principal, multiplied by 0.06, that's the interest rate written as a decimal fraction, and then multiplied by 5. Remember, multiplication is commutative, also it's associative, so we can do it in different orders. We can also do it grouped differently. So over here, I grouped that together and then I multiplied by 5, but it doesn't matter. I can do it all in one go as well. So if I take that 1,600 times 0.06 and multiplied by 5, it's still going to give me the total interest of 480 Rand. So here, my simple interest is 480 Rand. And then my accumulated amount is the amount that I started with, which is my principal, plus the simple interest. So I'm going to take the principal, which is the 1,600, and add the simple interest of 480. and that will give me the same amount that I had over there of 2,080 Rand. Okay, so you can work out the total interest by just multiplying the principal and the interest rate and the number of years all in one go like that, and then add it to the principal amount to get your accumulated amount. Now let's take a closer look at this formula. So I used the formula A equals P plus SI, so that's the accumulated amount is equal to the principal plus the simple interest. Now remember, simple interest can be calculated by taking the principal, multiplying it by I, which is the interest rate written as a decimal fraction or written as a fraction over 100. You can write it either way. Okay, I prefer to write it as a decimal fraction, but you obtain I by taking the interest rate, which is R, and dividing it by 100. Okay, and then multiplying that by the number of years. Okay, so in this formula over here, I is the interest rate divided by 100. Okay, and I tend to write it as a decimal fraction. Right, so we have the formula A equals P plus SI, so that's the accumulated amount, is equal to the principal plus the simple interest. But if I take the formula that I had for the simple interest, I can combine it with this formula and replace this with P times I times N. So the accumulated amount is equal to the principal amount plus the principal multiplied by the interest multiplied by the number of years. Okay, so this is a formula that we can use to calculate the accumulated amount when we are working with simple interest. Okay, so now let's go and have a look at an example where we're going to be using this. In this example, you take out a loan of 12,000 Rand at 9% simple interest per year. How much will you owe after 6 years? So let's go and have a look at how we would do this question. Okay, so I'm going to take my formula, which is A equals P plus P times I times N. The reason I'm using this formula is because I want to work out A. I want to work out the accumulated amount, the total amount that you will owe after 6 years. Okay, so let's go and see what is P over here. In this example, P is 12,000. That is the amount that was borrowed as a loan right in the beginning. So P is 12,000. So I have 12,000 plus, and then 12,000 again, multiplied by the interest, which they told me it's 9%. So over here, I'm going to write it as 0,09. And then my number of years is 6. So now let's go and work that out. So I have 12,000 plus 12,000 times 0.09 times 6. And that should give you 18,480 Rand. So that is the total amount that you will owe after 6 years, using that interest rate for that particular loan. Okay, now I'm going to give you a few that you're going to do for yourself. Here's the first one you're going to do. If you invest 5,000 Rand at a simple interest rate of 6% per annum, how much will your investment be worth after 3 years? Okay, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to work on this question. Okay, so let's go through that question. So I'm going to start off by working with the formula. Now, in this example, we are trying to work out how much the total investment is worth after 3 years. So I'm going to be using the formula that allows me to work out the accumulated amount. So A equals P plus P times I times n. Okay, so my principal amount in this example is 5,000 because that is how much you invested in the beginning. So it's 5,000 plus and then 5,000 again, multiplied by the interest rate, which is 6%, and we're going to write that as 0.06, and then multiplied by the number of years, which is 3. Okay, so we've got over here 5,000 plus 5,000 times 0.06 times 3, and that should give you 5,900 Rand. So that's what you should have got for that question. Right, now let's go on to question B. You take out a loan of 6,000 Rand at 15% simple interest per annum for 4 years. What is the total interest you will end up owing by the end of the loan period? So I just want to draw your attention to the fact that here you are being asked to work out the total interest. Okay, so just bear that in mind while you do this question. I'm going to give you 1 minute to work on it. Okay, so let's take a look at what you should have done. So for this question, we're not trying to work out the total loan amount at the end of the 4 years. We just want to know the interest amount at the end of the 4 years. So I'm going to use the formula simple interest is equal to the principal multiplied by the interest multiplied by the number of years. Okay, so the principal in this one is 6,000. So it's 6,000 multiplied by the interest rate, which is 15%. So when we write that as a decimal, it's going to be 0.15, and then multiply that by the number of years, which is 4. Okay, so here we've got 6,000 times 0.15 times 4. That gives you 3,600 Rand. So that's how much interest you're going to end up being charged because of having this loan for 4 years. Okay, and then question C. Okay, so this question says, if you earned 600 Rand in interest at a rate of 4% per year over 5 years, what was the principal amount? So this question is being asked the other way around to normal. Here you're being told what the interest amount is, you've been told what the interest rate is, and you've been told the number of years, but you need to work out what the principal amount is. You're going to be working backwards. So you're going to use the formula, substitute in the values you've been given, and then solve for the principal amount. Okay, so I'm going to give you 1 minute to work on this question. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have done. So for question C, we have been given the simple interest amount, And we are having to work out what the principal amount is. So I'm going to be using the same formula that I did in the previous one, but I'm substituting the values in slightly differently. So I've got simple interest is equal to the principal multiplied by the interest rate multiplied by the number of years. Okay, but now the simple interest is what I've been given. So that's 600. That goes over here. So 600 is equal to P is what I need to work out. And then I'm multiplying that by I, which is 0,4 or 0,04 rather. And the number of years, which is 5. Okay, so now to work out what P is, you need to remember how to solve equations. If I want to get P on its own, I need to get rid of all the things that are being multiplied over here by P by doing the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So I'm going to be dividing by 0.04 and dividing by 5 to get rid of it over here, but that means I have to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to be dividing the 600 over here by both of those as well. So I'm going to take the 600, divide it by 0.04, and divide it also by 5. So I'm dividing by both of those. Okay, and that should give you 3,000 Rand. So P is equal to 3,000 Rand. So that's how much you invested in the first place. Okay, now let's go on to hire purchase agreements. Now this is something you should have already learned about, so I'm just going to be reminding you very quickly about how they work. A hire purchase agreement is a credit agreement between a customer and a shop in which the customer agrees to pay for an item in monthly payments because they can't afford to pay the full price up front. The customer is charged interest because they aren't paying all of it in one go, so the shop charges them interest. And they may also be required to pay a cash deposit, which is a cash amount that they have to pay upfront right in the beginning. Okay. The cash price is the selling price of the item. Okay, that is what, if somebody were to just go and buy it normally, they would be paying the cash price. The deposit is calculated as a percentage of the cash price. Normally, sometimes they can just give you an amount for the deposit, but normally you'll be asked to calculate it as a percentage of the cash price. The principal loan amount, which is P, is equal to the cash price minus the deposit. So to work out, remember when you have a hire purchase agreement, you're going to be paying it off over an amount of time and charged interest on it. So the amount that they charge interest on is what you haven't paid yet. So we take the cash price and we subtract the deposit to find out how much you haven't paid yet. And that gives the principal amount, which is P. The number of years is the number of years that you're going to be taking to pay this loan back. So it's how long the customer will be paying back the loan. The interest, SI, it is calculated on a simple interest basis, even if it is not specified. So please be aware of that. In hire purchase agreements, it will always be simple interest. So they don't necessarily have to tell you what type of interest it is. You need to know that it is simple interest because it is a hire purchase agreement. And simple interest is calculated as P times I times N, which we've just been doing. The accumulated loan amount, or A, this is the total amount that the customer will need to pay back, excluding the deposit, because they already paid the deposit. Okay, the accumulated loan amount can be calculated by saying the principal amount plus the simple interest, which we have just learned. We can also use the formula A equals P plus P times I times N, because this is the same as simple interest. That's how you work out the simple interest. Okay, then the monthly payments or installments are calculated by taking the accumulated loan amount and dividing it by the number of months that you'll be paying this off. Okay, so if you're paying it off over a period of 4 years, then if there are 12 months in a year, it means that you're going to be paying for 48 months. So you multiply the number of years by 12 if you've been told how many years it is. The total cost is the amount that is going to cost the person all together. We calculate that by saying the cash price, which is what they would have paid if they were going to pay it up front, the cash price plus the interest that they are being charged because they couldn't pay it up front. So that's one way of working out the total cost. So take the cash price and add the interest. Another way of working out the total cost is to take the deposit that they paid in the beginning and then add to that the accumulated loan amount. Okay, now let's go and have a look at an example. A television costs 8,000 Rand. If you buy it on hire purchase with a 10% deposit and the rest to be paid off at 12% interest per year over 24 months, how much is the monthly payment? Okay, so let's go and have a look at how we would do this question. So the first thing we need to do here is we need to work out how much you have to pay as a deposit right in the beginning. Okay, so your deposit, they told us, is going to be 10%. So you're paying a 10% deposit, so you're going to be working with 10% of the 8,000. So it's 8,000 multiplied by 0.1 to get 10%. Okay, so that should give you 800 Rand. So the deposit is 800 Rand. Now we're going to go and work out the principal loan amount. Okay, so to work out the principal loan amount, we're going to take the cash price, which is what you would have paid if you could pay for it all in one go. So that's the 8,000 minus the deposit that you have already paid. And that gives you 7,200 Rand. Okay, so now that is the amount that you haven't paid yet for this TV. Now we need to go and work out, using that, how much we're going to end up paying because of the interest that they're going to add onto it. Okay, so now we take the principal amount. So first of all, our formula, A equals P plus P times I times N. So the principal amount is 7,200 plus, again, 7,200 multiplied by I, which they told us that we're being charged 12% interest per year. So it's going to be 0.12, and then it's for 24 months. Now you need to know that 24 months is 2 years, and when you're using this formula, remember N is the number of years. So you can't put 24 here. It's not 24 because that would be 24 years. It's 24 months. That is 2 years. Okay, so we're going to be working with 2 years here. So we've got 7,200 plus 7,200 times 12% or 0.12 times 2. And that should give you 8,928 Rand. Okay, so that is how much you're being charged for the loan altogether. Okay, so now they want to know what the monthly payment is. So to work out the monthly payment, we take this amount, which is what they haven't paid or what we haven't paid yet. Okay, we already paid the 800, so we don't have to still pay that. This is what we haven't paid yet. So we're going to be taking this and dividing it by the number of months that we're going to be paying. So it's going to be 8,928 divided by the number of months, which is 24. Divide that by 24, and that gives you 372 Rand. And that is how much you have to pay monthly. Okay, so that's how you would do that question. Right, now I'm going to give you one that you're going to do for yourself. So in this question, it says a car costs 180,000 Rand and is purchased on hire purchase with a 10% deposit. The balance is paid over 48 months at an interest rate of 9% per year. What are the monthly payments? Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to work on this question. Okay, so let's go through that question and see what you should have got. So the first thing you had to do here was to work out the deposit. They told you that you had to pay a 10% deposit, okay? So to work out the deposit, we take the total cash price, which is 180,000, and multiply that by 0.1 for 10%. And that should have given you 18,000 Rand for the deposit. Okay, then the next thing you're going to do is work out the principal amount. So the principal is the cash price minus the deposit. So it's going to be 180,000 minus the 18,000, and that should give you 162,000 Rand. So that is how much you haven't paid yet. Once you've paid the deposit, this is how much you still owe. Okay, but now they're not only going to charge you that, they're going to be charging you interest as well, because you're not paying it all in one go. So what you're going to do is you have to work out the interest now. So the interest is A equals P plus P times I times N. Okay, so the P is your 162,000. Then your I, they are charging 9% interest, so it's going to be 0.09, and then multiply that by the number of years. Now they told us that it's 48 months. 48 months is equivalent to 4 years. We divide by 12 to get the number of years, so that's going to be times 4. Okay, so now we're going to go and work that out. So 162,000 plus 162,000 times 0.09 times the 4 years. And that gives 220,320 Rand. Okay, so that's how much you have to pay still, including the interest that they're going to charge. Now they want to know what the monthly payments are. So we're going to take this amount and we're going to divide it by the number of months. So 220,320 divided by 48, because we're making 48 payments. So we take that, divide that by 48, and that's, so it's 220,320 divided by 48, that gives 4,590 Rand. So that's how much you'd have to pay each month for this car. Okay, so that's what you should have got for question A. Right, now the last question for today. Question B says, a washing machine is bought for 11,000 Rand on hire purchase with a 5% deposit. The balance is paid over 3 years at an interest rate of 8% per annum. What is the total cost of the washing machine? Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to work this question out as well. Okay, so let's go through that question quickly. So once again, the first thing you need to do for this question is you need to work out the deposit. So the deposit is 5% of 11,000 Rand. So we're going to say 11,000 multiplied by 5%, which is 0.05. Okay, so now 11,000 times 0.05 gives you 550 Rand. So that's how much you have to pay up front. Okay, now we're going to go and work out what the principal amount is. The principal is going to be the cash price, which is 11,000 minus the deposit, which is 550. Okay, so that's 11,000 minus 550 gives you 10,450 Rand. So that is how much you still have to pay after you've paid the deposit. Now we're going to go and work out the amount that you're going to have to pay, including the interest. So the accumulated amount, or the accumulated loan amount, is P plus P times I times N. Please take note, every time I use this formula, I write the formula down, and then I show the substitution into that formula. You need to be writing the formula down before you use it. Okay, so now I'm going to go and fill in my P value, which is 10,450. Plus, again, 10,450 multiplied by I. Now, the interest rate over here is 8% per annum, so it's going to be 0.08 multiplied by N, which is the number of years, and they said that we're paying it off over 3 years. Okay, so now we're going to go and work this out. So we've got 10,450 plus another 10,450 times 0.08 times 3. That should give you 12,958. Okay, so once you've worked that out, we now need to go and answer the final part of the question. Now, this is where it's different to the other questions we've done so far. The other questions asked for the monthly payments. Here, we're not being asked what the monthly payments are going to be. We're being asked what the total cost is going to be. So the total cost, we have two choices of how we could work it out. We could work it out by saying the principal amount plus the simple interest. So that would be the 11,000 plus the simple interest. Or we can work it out by saying the deposit plus the accumulated loan amount. Now, in this case, we haven't worked out the simple interest on its own. We have worked out the deposit, we've worked out the principal amount, and we've worked out the accumulated loan amount. We never actually worked out the simple interest on its own. That's this over here. We never worked that out on its own. So I'm not going to use the method where we take the simple interest and add it to the total, or to the cash price. I'm rather going to use the method where we take the deposit and the accumulated loan amount and add those together. So I'm going to say that the total is equal to the deposit plus A. And that gives us 550 plus the 12,958. So the 12,958 plus the 550 gives me the total, which is 13,508 Rand. And that's what you should have got for that question. And that is how we work with simple interest and hire purchase agreements. Now that we've learned the concepts in this lesson, it's important to practice, practice, practice. If you haven't already got the worksheet that goes with this video, you can find it by clicking on the link in the description below. The worksheet comes with an extra exercise full of questions for you to work on to master the concepts covered in this lesson. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button so that others can benefit from it too. Also, be sure to subscribe so that you can easily find my other lessons, and hit the bell so that you will get notified about lessons as I upload them.